This next part is a part that this is number chapter 5, number 9 on page 330. There is a multiple parts here, A, B, C, D, E, F on this thing. I want to see if I can walk you through and help you through some of these problems in here. The first problem says, write a program that uses a while loop to perform all the following steps. If you recall, let me just move some of this right here. Just recall to what we talked about, a while loop. In your while loop, you have your test expression. That's your test expression. But before your test expression is you got to have your initialization, right? Statement right here. Okay? And inside of that, after you init, key things I want you to remember. You tell it to do some sort of statement, blah blah blah, and then you need to update your variable, your variable here with this thing. Now, this is very important. First step is what? This is your step number 1. Inside of this thing, all right, you have is your step number 2, and down here is your update. So I want you to keep this in mind when you know there's a certain number of iteration that takes place. The while loop is a wonderful loop to use as well. Okay, so let me pull this up here and continue where we just left off in a second here. So you have this problem right now that wants you to prompt the user. Okay, it's easy. You can do that, couldn't you? So what happens when you prompt the user? In number 9 here. Go in, and I want you to take a look at this. When you prompt the user, of course you got to start out with what? Cout. And the instruction says prompt the user to input 2 integers, the first number and the second number. The first number must be less than the second number. Well, just do exactly what it says. Okay, so cout, enter 2 numbers. The first number and the second number has to be, the first number has to be less than the second number. Say that on the all in one statement with it. Okay, and then what do? Inside of the statement right now that I'm going to have you do is read in cin. So how do you read in the cin for the first number? Cin, insertion, and then second number. Okay, so you're reading both of those things. Both those numbers are stored in memory with it. So that's just parts A. I just took care of that for you. Really simple with that, right? Give it a next line down and all that stuff, so it separates it with it. Part B, here we go. It follows along with number 6. So how do I know in this next problem is I'll put all the odd numbers between the first and second. So for instance, again, I'm going to use this as a chalkboard. What if I enter a number 3 space 4 space 5 6? My first number is 3 and my last number is 8. Let's make this a little bit more interesting. Let's do 2. Okay, so I did this. Okay, so I did 2. My first num is 2 and my second num is now 8. Now I need to actually figure out if my first num is an odd number or not. Correct? How do I do that? I evaluate first num is divided by 2. If it equals to 0, then it's an even number. Now, technically, if I did 2, there's a span of 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. These are my numbers, right? So if I figure out my first number, if it is an even number, what do I have to do? I have to go in here. I would have to, how do I move from this 2 to a 4? I have to add 1, right? So adding 1 to this thing allows me to go to the next one is a 4. And how do I go from a 4 to a 6? I add 1 to it, that goes to a 6. How do I go from a 6 to an 8? Again, until I get to an odd number, this statement will be false with it. Okay? So I need to come down here. If it's an odd statement with this thing, I just assign first num to the counter with this thing. Now, in a way, you have to display this thing. This is very important in how you run and display this thing, because it's a way how you can actually see how this comes about with this thing. Now, this example that I just gave you was the first num and second num, right? But here's your counter. your counters now need to be initialized. In this case, I gave the counter of to be 0, to be, I'm sorry, I declared it as counter is int. So I came down here inside of this counter right now. What's my counter? Whatever I did up here. So if you think about this part right here, all of this right here, this is equivalent to your initialization of your counter before you went into your test expression. This is your update expression, meaning that once you test this thing, you're going to do a cout counter with a space. And how do you move from one to the next one? This is how you update it. So you're going to add 2 to the counter that actually moves it along with it. Okay. So this is part B. Basically, I kind of gave you a start on this thing. Now part C, on the other hand, okay, if you look at part C, on the other hand of this thing, let's see how many minutes we have before I go over. Let me stop.